Hello, welcome back to Bebop Review. My name's Andy Shaw. I got this comment from somebody called Tell It Like It Is, 1963, and this is on the video Billy's Bounce analysis, the one where we're criticising the guy called Walk That Bass. He's put, I don't get all this analysis stuff of a saxophone solo. If you remember in that video, I actually showed that this guy called Walk That Bass was saying that there were bebop scales all over Billy's Bounce. Now, actually showing you that a lot of what he said wasn't true. They're not really bebop solos, but these voice leading lines you can do, and you can see certain patterns in Parker's playing. Although it wasn't really a solo that I was looking at, it was the actual melody line of Billy's Bounce. So I don't understand this comment that this guy called Tell It Like It Is has given me, you know. But I understand basically what he's saying. Anyway, what he's saying is this: it don't really matter about seeing that video. You can get what he's saying just by reading his comment. He says, I don't get all this analysis stuff of a saxophone player's solo. Fact, it's done on the spur of the moment. So how in their head, when playing 100-mile-an-hour bebop, do they work out what scale chord pattern runs, etc. they're going to play? It's mostly done by ear and feeling the tune and where it's going on the spur of the moment. Otherwise, every solo for one particular song would be the same. This teaching is why we have so many monotonous chord and scale players with no harmony or soul to what they play. The thing is, if you don't analyse it right by looking at scales and patterns and stuff, then you're not going to see anything at all. I mean, Adam Neely did somebody on one of Adam Neely's question and answer videos. Somebody said the same thing. You know, it's all done by ear and they just play it on the spur of the moment. So Adam Neely says, well, you know, try and explain anything if you think like that all the time. You've got to be able to look at it in scales and what chords they're going over and things like that to actually see anything at all. And it's not true anyway what he's saying. In modern jazz, you cannot play by ear, in my opinion. The only player I know in modern jazz who played by ear was Chet Baker, right? He's the only one I know by reading about the players who play by ear. Just about every other player actually knew the theory of chords and scales to chords and all that kind of stuff. Right, now, the thing about bebop with Charlie Parker is Charlie Parker, he's saying, like, how do you play a 100-mile-an-hour bebop solo, right? Well, you play it. I mean, it means, like, things that are like 300 beats a minute and upwards, you know. It's very difficult to improvise. In fact, it's impossible to improvise at that speed. You just can't do it. You can't get through the chords at that speed in bebop without really knowing theory and working things out beforehand. Giant Steps, right? John Coltrane's Giant Steps. He was working on those chords for about 2 years before he actually recorded Giant Steps. And when he went in the studio, Tommy Flanagan was playing piano on that tune. Coltrane went round to his house and the night before or a couple of nights before and said, oh, we're going to play this tune. And he played it to him very slowly as a ballad. And because the chords are very complicated, Tommy Flanagan thought it was a ballad. So he just practiced it as a ballad. Then when they went into the studio and they were doing it at 300 beats a minute, you can hear that Tommy Flanagan just can't play it, you know. But later on in his years, Tommy Flanagan came to become one of the best players of Giant Step because he really worked on it and got it so he could play really well. Now, Coltrane wasn't just improvised. He'd been playing for 2 years over that kind of chord sequence. You can see the development of that chord sequence in tunes like Countdown and these other tunes that he were writing up to that point. Okay? So it's not true improvisation. People work on tunes, right, and they get so they can feel the way through it, but they use patterns and they know the scales and all that kind of stuff, but they're not thinking of scales to chords at the moment on very fast tunes. They're just playing. They are improvising, but they're kind of playing. They know it's so familiar when they know what patterns to play. But he's saying that if you play a pattern, the same pattern twice, it's the same tune. He's saying otherwise, look, he says, otherwise, it's only done by ear and feel a tune when it's going to spur a moment. Otherwise, every solo one particular song would be the same. No, it wouldn't. You can play Mary Had a Little Lamb, right? Or, I don't know, some simple pop tune or some simple nursery rhyme. You can play that hundreds of different ways. Hundreds, in fact, thousands, millions of different ways, just by altering the rhythm on the notes. Right, Mary had a little lamb. I can just do it by talking. Mary had a little lamb. Mary had a little lamb. Just by doing that, I'm still singing the same notes, but I'm altering it by repeating notes, by changing rhythm around. You know, you can go up and down with your voice. You know, it's just silly to say that playing the same notes every time is going to be the same thing. It isn't. It isn't. If you listen to two people or singers in jazz sing the same song, even though they're doing the melody, you can hear two completely different performances, and they're both really good. You're thinking, oh, that's an interesting way of doing it, that's an interesting way of doing it. But they're singing the same notes, it's just the way they're phrasing and things, you know.
How much do I love you? I'll tell you no lie. How deep is the ocean? How high is the sky?
How much do I love you? I'll tell you no lie. How deep is the ocean? How high is the sky? How much do I love you? I'll tell you no lie. How deep is the ocean? How high is the sky?
How much do I love you? I'll tell you no lie. How deep is the ocean? How high is the sky? How many times in a day?
So rhythmic is very important as well. I'm sure that most of you know this, that this is to actually say that when you're repeating notes, you're playing the same thing. You're not. A lot of the music, right, what you play, is rhythmically done and things like that, which it doesn't matter if you play the same notes. Now in bebop we play patterns, but as I've been showing you, it's the way those patterns are put together, and sometimes those patterns are altered, like making a simple lineup that you might play 1,000 times and then altering that line. Now I don't want to really knock this guy down too much, because I kind of sympathise with what he's saying about he's saying this teaches why so many modern chord and scale players have no harmony or soul to what they play, right? I kind of agree with him on that. I'm not 100% against him. I'm just trying to say that it's not always true that, you know, you can play scales and they can be very good, you know, and you can play the same scales, they can still be very, very good. It depends on the player, right? But you can also get into a situation where you get people copying patterns like Charlie Parker's, big patterns. I'm not talking about the building blocks that I've been talking about, like M5, M1 and all that. All the bebop players use those patterns, right? Clifford Brown, Bud Powell, Dizzy Gillespie, Charlie Parker. In fact, you'll see them, but they don't all play like each other. Bud Powell doesn't sound like Charlie Parker, and Clifford Brown doesn't sound like Charlie Parker. You can tell the influence, and Cannonball Adderley as well. I mean, Cannonball Adderley was a hard bop. He started off as a bebop, you know, into Parker and that. He admits it himself that, you know, he was very much influenced by Charlie Parker, but he got into his own thing. He plays very similar type patterns as Charlie Parker. You see lots of M5Bs and that, but he doesn't sound like Charlie Parker. He sounds like Cannonball Adderley because he puts his own way of playing it, you know what I mean? Now, this thing about monotonous chord plays he's saying is like people who don't put their own things. They copy Parker and they can't make their own story out of it, you know, and there's a lot of them around. So he's right where he says, now, to emphasise this, what his point, I'm putting across his point of view now, tell it like it is his point of view. I'll just read you this bit from Lenny Tristano. It's in a PhD study. It's actually free, this PhD study on the internet. I might put it on the Bebop Review Facebook page so you can actually look at it yourself. But I'll just read you a bit about Lenny Tristano. Okay, I hope you can see that. It says, Bird's Words and Lenny's Lessons, Use and Avoiding Patterns in Bebop by Max Steyer. Okay, so I'll try and get hold of this and put it on the Facebook page so you can have a look at it if you want. And it's on, I think it's on page 63, if I can get down to it. Right, chapter 3 here. I'll just read this bit here for you. It says, the cognitive and neurological necessity of licks in improvisation. One of Tristano's primary concerns as a teacher was to produce students who were not reliant on material copied from others and who instead focused on spontaneous and original improvisation. Tristano and his students revered Charlie Parker, but they were extremely aware of his use of licks and of the widespread imitation of his playing. What Tristano considered to be thievery of Parker's unique voice was in part what informed many of his opinions on the use of licks in improvisation. It was Tristano's intention to avoid an over-reliance on Parker licks, both in his own playing and in the playing of his students. Almost all of his prominent students were encouraged to learn Parker solos at some point in their studies, but Tristano was careful to steer them away from reliance on Parker licks and instead directed their focus towards the feeling of Parker's playing. Tristano said that he was not interested in teaching parts, only the whole. The whole is greater than the parts. Bird was certainly greater than all his licks. That's why the imitators are not great. They're only doing the parts. Konitz believes that improvisers, that's Lee Konitz by the way, Konitz believed that improvisers' reliance on licks, especially the licks of other musicians, comes from their desire to create a finished product and to always have things to play. But it is not the work of a true adventurous, chance-taking spirit. Tristano thought Parker to be a true musical genius, but on the issue of Parker and jazz vocabulary, he said, the jazz musician's function is to feel. Unfortunately, Bird put notes into people's mouths. This vocabulary is accepted as jazz, and everybody does it. But jazz is improvising. It is the personal, emotional impact of a great improviser. It provides the listener with an experience he could have no other way. But as today, when the vocabulary is the same, you have lost that experience. How intense can you be with someone else's words? While this sentiment is certainly lofty, the pure omission of licks is only possible as an ideal and is essentially impossible in reality. Do you hear that? Impossible in reality. Tristano and his students were certainly aware of this truth, but they felt it against the spirit of improvisation to wholeheartedly embrace licks, as with the opinions of the scholars addressed in Chapter 1. Tristano was also an apologist for Parker's use of licks, despite the fact that he was so vehemently opposed to them in his own playing and the playing of his students. However, unlike the Parker scholars, Tristano rejected the idea that playing licks was simply the way that all jazz musicians improvise. For Tristano, Parker was given a pass for using licks because of what Tristano considered to be his singular nature in the history of improvised music. He essentially gave Parker free rein due to his originality and because Tristano felt that Parker invented bop. What emerges when looking at the Tristano school and the Parker school, or mainstream bebop, is two distinct styles of improvisation. Both unquestionably use learned patterns, but one relies on them outright while the other avoids them but accepts them as inevitable. Konitz adds a third category of improvisational style in addition to mainstream and Tristano styles. In his opinion, the first category of improvisers are those who play professional performances. These are improvisers who have a rehearsed routine that is guaranteed to please the audience. So you could say people like Lester Young, although he's a great improviser, he had these certain riffs because he knew it'd get the audience shouting and going, you know, especially when he did all that false fingering. So that's what Lee Konitz means about that kind of playing false fingering, and modern day players do it by screaming, don't they? They go, if you're a saxophone player, they go right into the harmonics and start screaming, and people think that's I think it's terrible myself. I think it's horrible to listen to, but a load of people think it's great, all that kind of screaming at the top end. But it's not really difficult. It's much more difficult to actually play ideas than do that. Konitz identifies Oscar Peterson and James Moody as practitioners of this style. So he's actually seen Oscar Peterson and James Moody as people who play these like lines that get the audience going. Usually virtuoso stuff, isn't it? I must admit, though, I actually saw James Moody when he came to Sheffield in 1980s, I think it was, early night, before he died anyway, and he was absolutely fantastic. I thought it was a really great concert, and I didn't find him pleasing the crowd with any patterns than that. He played flute, alto, sax, tenor. He played all these multiple instruments, absolutely brilliant. What a fantastic player he was, James Moody, great. The second style is that of Parker, which Konitz calls a compositional approach, and in which the improviser creates a spontaneous composition that is pieced together through a combination of licks and general vocabulary. The third style, or the intuitive style, is the one in keeping with the tenets of the Tristano method, and is the style that Konitz himself practices. Okay, I'm not going to go on about this. I think you get the idea that the Tristano school is saying that there's three ways. There's people who play like composed pieces or pieces that get the crowd going. There's Parker who can just spin a line, continuous line out using patterns and stuff. And then there's the Tristano school that plays patterns but tries to keep away from them, right? So there's all different ways of playing. As far as Tristano's concerned, he kind of agrees with what that Tell It Like It Is says, that if you can't just play patterns straight off one after the other, because you're just going to sound like a fool. And he's right in what he says, because I hear exactly what he says as well. I do hear a lot of players who do that, and they do get on your nerves. So he's right there in his way. But the thing is that Parker and the bebop school played a lot of patterns. This music that we're looking at, the 1940s, played a lot of patterns, and they played great music. Now, Lenny Tristano and his method, people like Lee Konitz, Billy Bauer, and all them kind of people, I don't think they're nowhere near the same class as the great beboppers, as Charlie Parker, Bud Powell, and Clifford Brown. They're not. To me, they're not in. They're the class below. Do you know what I mean? They're the top class, and the second class to me is people like Dizzy and Fats Navarro and Sonny Stitt and all them. To me, they're better. They're better than the Tristano school of music. This is just my prejudice. I'd much rather listen to the beboppers, even the second division bebops and the third division beboppers, than the Tristano method, because I just find it a bit sickly, that kind of music. Even though it's trying to be very, very clever, it hasn't got that power, that blues power, And I think when they went into that kind of stuff and they were all going into cool music, they were kind of like left the blues. The blues is the real thing that gives jazz its power, and bebop had the blues, you know what I mean? The early swing had the blues, and bebop had the blues, and it kind of went in the cool style in this Tristano school and West Coast. It kind of died a bit. I know there's some West Coast style players who are great blues players. I think Art Pepper's a good blues player, but they're not like the great bebop players like Charlie Parker, and they're not like great swing players like, I don't know, Mary Lou Williams. She's a great blues player, and Lester Young's a great blues player, all those. But when the hard bop era came back, they went back to the blues, didn't they? They started doing blues again, I mean, Cannonball Adderley's a fantastic blues player, So I actually personally prefer the style of music which Tristano is kind of like knocking a bit, he's knocking the bebop style and why people are copying Charlie Parker. But the thing is, you can copy Charlie Parker's style and still be a great player yourself, because Cannonball Adderley did, didn't he? He's very much in that Charlie Parker style in hard bop, but he's a great player, isn't he? And Clifford Brown's a great player. He's in the Charlie Parker style. And Bud Powell is a great player. He's kind of like, Bud Powell is kind of like Charlie Parker and He's lots of players, Bud Powell. He's got Charlie Parker, but he's also got a little bit of Thelonious Monk in him, and he's also got what's his name? Art Tatum's got a lot of Art Tatum in his playing as well, Bud Powell, hasn't he? But what I'm trying to say is that all these people who have got Charlie Parker and all these other players inside them are more than the sum of their parts. They end up becoming individuals in their own rights, in the same way that Charlie Parker, who ripped off people like Lester Young, Jimmy Dozer, Roy Eldridge, Coleman Hawke, he just ripped off everybody, is more than the sum of all those people he ripped off. He became his own man. And that's kind of what you've got to do when you're studying this course. This is why I'm talking about the building blocks in music, which is just the little bits that all the beboppers have. The beboppers don't copy these long patterns that you see people on YouTube saying the one pattern you've got. It's a great long pattern that goes over like 2 bars. What I'm just showing you is all the little riffs, right, and which you have to learn, and then you put them together in your own patterns. You know what I mean? That's how I see it anyway. So, I know I've talked a lot here, and at the beginning of this video I'll probably put a skip so those who don't want to listen to me talk. But what I want to do in this, I actually want to show a pattern. I want to really talk about what Tell It Like It Is said. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you one of the great quotes that Charlie Parker uses as a pattern, and then plays around that pattern, and used it pretty much all his career on the tune, well, on the chord sequence to Cherokee. So it appears in the early versions of Cherokee and Coco and things like that. It's one of the really great emphases of using a simple, you could say simple pattern. You could say a very simple pattern, but then putting his own personality into it, in his own way of doing it, and this pattern changes and changes, and it gets better every time, because he thinks, oh, I'll make it better this way, I'll make it better, until the end we get this very aggressive. Now I'm going to have to put some music on, let you listen to Charlie Parker playing these things, so I might get a copyright strike by doing that, so I'm not sure this video is going to get a copyright strike. Usually with music, I found, if you put music on, they don't let you monetize it, which I'm not bothered about anyway, because I don't make any money out of my videos. That's not the point of putting these videos on. But they might pull it down. But usually you get advertising going over the top. So I'll have to let you listen to see how this line has actually developed over the years. So we'll have a look at Charlie Parker now. Charlie Parker in Cherokee. And I'm sorry for all those who didn't want to listen to me rabbit on there. And like I said at the beginning, I'll put a little thing telling you where to jump to if you just want to go to the analysis. Okay, so I'm looking at Tiny's tempo. These are the 3 takes on Tiny's tempo. Hope you can see them okay. I put them side by side so we can compare them. Right, if you look here, this line here, can you see on take 1? We've got this bit here where Parker's playing this line, and then it goes into that line there. It's very similar, in fact it's virtually identical to this line here. Can you see? From here, well, same thing, from there to there. It's pretty much the same thing, it's slightly different. What we're looking at is basically this bit here. I'll go back to 1. It's this bit here on 1. Can you see? Got this triple bit, but we've also got this bit in, hold on, let's do that again. What we're looking at is this bit here. And then it goes into that changing tone there. That change, see, that's going there. There's a changing tone, but he's not playing it there, but he is there. He's going into that B. Can you see? So that's like a changing tone. But you can see that it's the same pattern. This is here. Let me just take that off so I can show you what's actually happening. Right, this here is M1, obviously. It's a triplet, so it's M1. This is a chromatic run, very important. This is M4A. Oh God, hold on. This is M4A, this bit here. This is what I'm talking about, just this bit here. This is M4A. It's actually a big A. And then we're going into this bit here, which is, I'm not sure what that is. It's an arpeggio. That's a D minor arpeggio. It is a line. This. So you've got this changing tone here. It's taking you, but instead of going to B, he's actually decided to play this B. But there he is playing the B. Can you see on that side? But this is basically the same. See, Parker's actually playing the same thing, but these solos don't sound the same. I'll play them in a bit. This bit here, I think's weak from Parker. I'm not saying it's wrong what he's playing. You see that? He's putting some substitution in there. That's D flat 7, and he's taking you into this chord here, which is probably D. Let me think. What's that? C minor. So he's going from D to that C minor chord. So this is like, you know, D, F, A, C, D minor 7, D flat 7, C minor. That's what I think's happening there. This looks like a 2-5-1, C minor, F7 to B flat, right? So that's what I think's doing there. I had a really good look at that. But I think that's weak, that there, for Parker. And in that take 2 and 3, he doesn't play it, but he plays it down here. Can you see? Right at the end. See, he plays it there, and he plays it there. I think that's stronger. To finish the tune off with substitution like that is much better than playing it right up there at the beginning. So I think that was an improvement that he thought of as he was playing it, you know. Still a great solo on take 1, though. So I'm just looking at this. So as we can see, these are the same. Now on this one, right, he's playing it basically in the same place. It's just a few beats out. Can you see that line, that there? That M4A is there, M4A. It's actually at the beginning of the bar, so it'd be like there, wouldn't it, that M4A? So he's shifting it. Now, the thing about this shifting things does make solos sound differently, so you've got to think about things like that, you know. If you're playing the same line in the same place, you're going to sound the same, but by shifting it, you're going to make your solo sound a little bit different, aren't you? This bit here at the bottom, can you see? This line here. Basically, if you look at take 1, if I can find my mouse again. Where's my mouse gone? I have to scribble a bit. There. Right, if you look at this bit here, right, from here, down there, you know, onwards, wherever. It's the same on every one, innit? You see this one here. Let me just get rid of that. If you look, it's basically the same one. So you've got that arpeggio going up into that substitution there, and it's going all the way along here to, I don't know, to there. Right, and on this one, you've got pretty much the same thing. It's not the same at the beginning. Right, you haven't got this triplet going in. It's not the same. He's actually using this again, this line here. You see this line up here on M1 going thing, but he's putting 4 notes into the M1s, so the M1s become a bit thing. So, but that's the same thing. You know what I mean? You're going M1 and then M4A, and then you go into the same thing, and then you go that arpeggio there. Can you see? It's basically the same as what happened on take 1, but he's putting it right at the end, which I think is more effective, actually. And then we go into this, where he's playing on every one at the end. Can you see? Right up to there. So you can see that Parker's using patterns and repeating himself on patterns all the time, but sometimes what he does is he plays a pattern and realises that here he's realising this substitution will be better at the end. See this substitution here, I've got a pen in on. This substitution here will be better at the end, here and here. But he does use same patterns at the same time. So he wants to get through this, he just likes it, so he's playing it every time. But there's so much variation, this solo. You see, look, there's lots of variations all over the place. So it don't really matter that much. He's not actually playing the same solo all the time. And this bit here where he's shifting it slightly does make it sound differently. So you've got to think about all these things. See, if you're looking at this, you're getting very similar type things happening all over. The way he starts his solo there, you know, going up into that triplet, then coming down. It's very similar to there, you're going up and coming down, you know. It's not exactly the same, but it's pretty similar, isn't it? Up there, you got that. I don't know, it just, the shape of it is very similar, but it does sound different. So let's have a listen to these parts here. I'll let you listen to that bit there, right, from here onwards, just to listen to that, and then we'll listen to this bit with this triplet, same thing in, and then we'll have a listen to it down here, and you'll see that it does actually sound different. That should actually sound very similar to that, because it's got that substitution in there. Okay. Okay, after listening to take 1 and 2, this little bit of take 1 and 2, Parker does play this line exactly the same on both sides. He accents that note there. He kind of subdues this, but this part he accents really hard, this A, and drives into this bit here. Here he's driving into that substitution, here he's driving into that. But I think it's because it's such a small area, you know, a tempo of 200, you don't seem to notice. Well, I don't notice it anyway. It just sounds good in either, even though he's playing the same thing. This bottom bit might be different, though. We might get some irritation on this bottom bit, but I certainly don't feel any irritation at all listening to these bits here. They just sound okay to me. You know, I'm not thinking to myself, oh, he's playing the same notes. Oh, I can't stand it. Oh, please stop him doing it. You know, it sounds okay. Let's have a listen to this bottom bit now and see if that's okay. Okay. Okay, well, having listened to these 3 takes on this bottom bit here, these repeated lines, you just don't notice them at all, I don't think, because it's part of a longer line and he's playing different. Well, he seems to be playing similar there because he's putting this substitution in on every one. It doesn't really bother you. I don't think it bothers you at all. So, you know, when Tell It Like It Is saying that if you're playing the same thing, it's irritating. I don't think it is. It doesn't irritate me any bit anyway. It might irritate you, because I've heard some people say, oh, I can't stand listening to Charlie Parker because he keeps on playing all these same riffs. But I think it's really clever how he puts these riffs in bigger patterns and plays about with them and alters them and makes them really interesting to listen to. So I actually marvel at this last bit where he keeps changing it and changing the ending. It still sounds really nice, but you might find it irritating. So it's very, very personal, isn't it, how you listen. But I actually really like listening to the way Charlie Parker plays those endings, and they don't bother me one little bit. In fact, none of his repeat patterns actually bother me at all, you know. So let's have a look now at Cherokee. I just want to stick this in a little extra for you. But let's have a look at Cherokee now and what I was saying about how Parker alters patterns, okay? Okay, so I'm looking at Coco, which was recorded in 1945. This is take 2, which was released to the public. And this is the part we're looking at, the B section, the second B section of Cherokee, okay? So it's this bit here, this motive here. This motive is actually a quote. Charlie Parker played it most of his life, recording life on, and playing life, obviously, on Cherokee, right? And Coco, and, you know, things based on the chord sequence of Cherokee. I'll let you listen to this over the years. So the first recording we have of it is called the Jerry Newman disc. Jerry Newman was a student in New York, and he had a disc recording, and he went round in the early 1940s recording places like Monroe's Uptown House, and that's where this one was recorded. So this is the Jerry Newman disc. He only actually recorded one Charlie Parker tune, tune with Charlie Parker playing. It was Cherokee. It was this one. So, and we've actually got this pattern. This is the first time this pattern appears on that disc. So just let you listen to it, okay? Okay, it's not recorded very well, but I think you can hear these descending lines that are being played. It's different on the first version of it. obviously developed it as it went on. It kind of like changed. I'll let you listen to another version. This is the Charles White disc version of Cherokee. Now in that version, it sounds a hell of a lot more like this version in Coco, doesn't it? It's getting more like it. In this version, we've got Max Roach and the rest of the beboppers, so it sounds a lot more aggressive. So, as you can hear, this line here started from the very beginning, early 1940s, right up to 45, 46, 47, 48, right up to Parker's death, really, were playing this. Didn't play it on every time he played Cherokee, through the change of Cherokee, but quite a lot of times he did. So let's break it down and have a look, see exactly what this is. Okay, so this is that riff in Band in a Box. This is how it's played in Coco. Okay, so this is the bridge section of Cherokee. I'll just let you listen to it. I've slowed it down to 118 because I want you to listen to it more carefully. Right, so what I'm going to do is now I'm just going to take some of these notes and put them in a different way. So I'm just going to do this in Cantizan. Now, I can't see this, but you will see it. So I'll circle all the notes I'm going to use with a red circle. Okay, so I'll just pause for a second. Okay, now all those notes I've just circled, I'm going to rearrange, and I've put them into solo section. So let's have a look at that. So that's those circle notes rearranged and changing the rhythm. So I'll let you listen to that, and this is where that riff came from. Right, I hope you recognise that tune, because that tune is T for 2. Da 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 da. Picture you upon my knee, just T for 2 and 2 for T. And that's where Charlie Parker got that riff from. Right. Let's just change that to my... That's where that came from. It initially started off just simply as that, and just by manipulating the notes, he made that out of it. The very aggressive... Let's speed it up a bit, shall we? Okay, so there you go. So that's where that came from. T for 2. T for 2 brought in that riff from Cherokee. So now you know where it came from. So that's it. That's how I want to answer. That actually repeating notes and making things up from simple lines, you can keep on repeating the same thing forever and ever and ever. Charlie Parker played that line right from the beginning till he died, really. He kept coming back to this. He didn't play it every time in Cherokee, but he did quite a lot. He used to play it different ways. If you listen to the versions of Cherokees, you'll hear this being played by Charlie Parker, that is. You'll hear this being played different ways. So that's it. That's all I want to say about that question that Tell It Like It Is said. Okay, so I'll see you in another video. Bye.